And when I was dying, I was fading away, and I thought, this was absolute peace, and I don't need to be here anymore. Then a one-eyed man appeared, who I didn't really know who he was. I thought it was my grandfather. He said, no, you're not dying, you're being reborn. This is your path. And I ended up homeless in the forest. It's the freest I've ever felt in my life. All those responsibilities of the business, the corporate, the criminal world that I was involved in were gone. And then the old man appeared again. And he said, what have you got? And I said, I've got nothing. He said, perfect. You have nothing left to lose. Change your ways. And he said to me, the answers for you are in the West. So I left my sister's house, and I'm walking back to where I was in the woods, and it started to rain, so I jumped over the fence to cross the field to get to some trees, and there's a big gold bracelet on the floor, like a gangster's bracelet. I took it to the pawnbrokers, and they gave me £800 for it. A £500 return ticket and £300 in my pocket. And I said, well, the one-eyed man came to me. He's provided the money for me to get here, so I think I should learn the runes and take a big cordon of runes around.
Welcome everyone, and I'm really excited on this beautiful Sunday morning here. It's a full season, and it's quite magnificent outside right now and sunny after weeks of rain and terrible storms. To be with Jeremy White. Hi Jeremy, hi brother.
Good to meet everyone.
Jeremy has been a deep, beautiful teacher of mine on this path for I think almost a decade now. And I studied the runes and the Norse Shamanic path with Jeremy, and I consider Jeremy a wise teacher, a storyteller, a shaman, someone that carries deep medicine and that has a really beautiful connection to land. And in this time of prophecies, this time of great change, this time of where everything seems to go a little bit crazy, I feel it's really good to talk about land and grounding and being really present in the world and what does that mean. So I'm excited to be with you, Jeremy, today. How are you?
I am good, and at the moment I'm in Dartmoor in England. So I'm normally in Glastonbury, but I'm in my motorhome and I travel around, and this is a very ancient place with lots of history, and I've been out. And just as you said, the rain's stopped where you are. The rain has just started where we are, and it is a terrible rainstorm. But part of the places that we live that make it green and lush is that rain. And even though sometimes it feels like a curse, it's also a blessing, and we must take it in balance. So I got soaked to the skin this morning, but I was at a place called Hay Tor, which is the word Tor in England means any hill. So you have Glastonbury Tor, and Hay Tor is a tour of the place called Hay. But much long ago, it was a place of the Druids, and there's records of human sacrifice there. The rocks that are there they're legendary, supposed to have been a pack of hounds that were turned into rocks by some witches, good witches. And that's where Arthur Conan Doyle got the idea for the Hound of the Baskervilles. I was there this morning. There was people there. It was pouring down the rain. I did my ceremony. I left runes, and I left an offering to the god Ingi Frey. He's the northern god of the north. He's the fairy king. He's Freya's brother. And it is in these wild places. He is the lord of the wood, the horned god. To the Celts, he is Cernanos. To the Norse, he is Frey. And that's who I blessed this morning.
Beautiful. Thanks for letting us know where you are. And so before I want to talk about land guardianship. I want to talk about this time of great changes we're in, like great transformation, and it's hard sometimes to keep track about this whirlpool of changes. But first, Jeremy, for people that don't really know you or that maybe are not super familiar with the North Celtic runic path, so can you tell us a little bit more about what you do and about those runes that you work with, and this quite mystical, beautiful medicine?
So first of all, I'd like to apologize for my oldest bulldog snoring in the background.
Yeah, I hear him. That's fine. That's with the music in the back.
Wait. Disturbing everyone. So my northern path, a bit like anyone's path, it sort of comes to you, and there's none of us who are strictly one path or another. I wouldn't be walking the path of a northern shaman or a medicine man of the north. unless I'd found my path in the Americas with Native Americans, because I had no belief in it. But once I understood that we're all indigenous to the planet, we all have our ancient origins on this land, and we all have ancient medicine hidden in our blood, in our gods, and also in the land. So you find a land that inspires you the most, and then you tap into that energy and you find your way. Now, for me, I had to go as far away from home as possible to realize that the magic was where I came from, but I would have never seen it that way. Now, the magic and the mysteries of the North, which are the runes and the Ogham by the Druids, I work with both. The runes are the Celtic, Saxon, Germanic languages. The Celtic tribes came from a place in Holstein, Germany. From there, they traveled north and south and west into the different places of Scandinavia, into Brittany, into Britain, as far as Ireland. They're the same cultures. Their goddess was Danu, hence you have the Danube River and you have Daneland. But over generations, we now have the Norse and the Celts. But they all originate from the same source. Those runic traditions, Celtic traditions, have been eradicated from most of our northern culture. But they live in the stories, they live in the fairy tales, and they live in the land. And when we tap into the runes, which is the language, the alphabet, and we start telling the stories, we start waking the memories of our ancestors. And those memories of our ancestors, the riddles, the magic, are hidden in the stories to help guide us in the modern world. And I really believe it's really important that we tell those stories again, but make them relevant to the people of this time.
So, I know the story a little bit because you shared it with me before, but how did those runes came to you? Because I know obviously you were living in America, in North America first for a long time, and then you came back and living in Glastonbury now. But sometimes we all get hit by lightning in some ways, right? On this path, like something really drastic happened that got us in contact with those non-human realms and beyond the human, the visible sometimes. So what happened to you? How did you discover that? How did this happen? Because I think it's a beautiful story of shamanic initiation.
So I was mystical as a child, but it was put down to anxiety and a vivid imagination. Until I was 37, I nearly died in hospital. And I didn't nearly die from the illness I had. It was from lungs collapsing because there was a flu epidemic. And when I was dying, I was fading away, and I thought, this was absolute peace, and I don't need to be here anymore. Then a one-eyed man appeared, who I didn't really know who he was. I thought it was my grandfather. Said, no, you're not dying, you're being reborn. This is your path. I took no notice of it again. Then I tried to go back into the world that had just spat me out, and I was spat out again. My wife divorced me. I ended up homeless in the forest, and I was sitting around a fire in the woods. I had no mobile phone. I had no money. It's the freest I've ever felt in my life. All those responsibilities of the business, the corporate, the criminal world that I was involved in were gone. And then the old man appeared again. And he said, what have you got? And I said, I've got nothing. He said, perfect. You have nothing left to lose. Change your ways. And I asked how. And he said to me, the answers for you are in the West. I thought, this is crazy. So my trade was a casino business, and I had lots of friends in Vegas. So I walked from the woods where I was living out, and my whole family thinks I've gone nuts. The people I was involved with, they call me Dumbledore now because they think I'm crazy. And I went to my sister's house, and I got on the old MySpace before Facebook to speak to my friend in Vegas. And it linked me with a woman born on the same day and the same year in Portland, Oregon. And I thought, she's cute. So I sent her a message, and we started chatting. And it worked out she was a ceramics artist, and that she was going to go and do the festival season. And I was welcome to be with her. And I had no money. She said, I'll send you some money. I said, I don't want no money. I said, if I'm meant to be there, Spirit will provide it. So I left my sister's house, and I'm walking back to where I was in the woods, and it started to rain. So I jumped over the fence to cross the field to get to some trees. And there's a big gold bracelet on the floor, like a gangster's bracelet. And I knew it was gold straight away. I took it to the pawnbrokers, and they gave me £800 for it. A £500 return ticket and £300 in my pocket. And when I get to Portland, Oregon, she's about to start doing her journeys across the states. She said, what are you going to do? And I said, well, the one-eyed man came to me. He's provided the money for me to get here, so I think I should learn the runes and take a big cauldron of runes around with me. So at different festivals all over the place, I acquired a top hat. People started putting feathers in my hat. I was telling stories and giving people guidance with the runes. And I was at one festival in Arizona, and a Native American woman came up to me and said, "Is this medicine?" I said, "Well, it's the medicine of my people." And she said, "How does it work?" I said, "Well, pick a rune and tell me what you get." So she showed me Odin's rune, which is the rune of the shaman, inheritance, the wise one. And I told her, and she said, "I'm a Chinook Indian. There's no medicine men in my tribe no more." So I said, "Take the rune and bury it on your land, and the shaman will return." Forgot all about it. About 2 years later, we're in a place called Eureka Springs, Arkansas, which is a place that's like Glastonbury, but in America. And sorry about the snoring bulldogs. And my wife's doing an art festival there, but the mayor of the town likes me having a stall selling runes and telling stories so much. He allows me to be in the center of the town with 2 Cherokee Indians. One's called Jimmy Two Shoes, one's called Jimmy Turtle. One makes moccasins, one makes bags. And they keep saying to me that my voice, my medicine, "You're a shaman, man. You should follow this path." I said, "I'm not a shaman. I've just got the gift of the gab. I tell a good story." And then I turned around. There was a woman looking through the runes, and she was looking for a certain one. And I said, "That's not the way you do it. Grab a handful." She goes, "No, I need a certain one." I said, "Just grab a handful and show me the one you get." And she picked Uraz, because obviously she needed healing from something. And I said, "You need healing." And she started crying. And then all of a sudden I heard the goddess Freya in my ear. And she said, "You need to bless this woman." And I'd never blessed anyone in my life. So I put my hands on her shoulder and I said, "In the name of Goddess Freya, I bless you." And as I did, a dozen butterflies landed on my hand, my arm, on my shoulder, on my top hat. And she started crying. And the 2 Indians are going, "Told you, man, you're medicine man." And I said, "Well," they went back to the reservation and told their elders, and I was invited to a sweat lodge. It is the worst experience of my life. I never want to do a sweat lodge ever again. I cried like a baby. I vomited. I was shivering. But when it was over, they told me, now I was born and I must listen to Great Spirit. So I went back to my wife, who's now becoming sort of not jealous, but she doesn't like my medicine path taking over everything. She says, "I want to go back to Portland, Oregon." So we go online to find somewhere to rent in Portland, Oregon. And it comes up with a cabin in the wilderness, 10 miles from the nearest road, 30 miles from the nearest town. And it's in northern Washington. And I said, "I have to go there." She goes, "Why?" She goes, "Because when I was a child in my father's scrapyard," because my father was a criminal villain, he had a scrapyard for doing the criminal stuff. "I fell asleep on the couch in the office and I woke up, and it took me half an hour to get out of this dream. I thought I was a mountain man from another time, and I didn't know where I was. And then gradually it came back to me. And this cabin I saw was where I lived in that time." And I said, "I have to go there." So we phoned up the realtor, and he said, "Yeah, it's up to you. You can leave us the deposit and you can go and see, but you've got to pick the keys up from the woman. And she leaves in 2 days. So we're in Eureka Springs, Arkansas, and we got to get to northern Washington. It's like 1,400 miles. So we drove non-stop for 2 days. We get all the way there. The sun's setting. It's exactly as I saw as a boy. I'm looking out across this bay. There's a lake. There's a cabin behind me. The sun's setting behind me, and the water was like mirror. And a bald eagle flew by. It was like, this is perfect. I turn round, and there's a woman coming out of the cabin with a shotgun. And I can't see her because the sun's in my eyes. And I thought, oh my God, well, I've come all this way to get shot. And then she goes, "Oh my God, it's you." I said, "Excuse me?" She goes, "You gave me a rune 2 years ago, and I buried it under this cabin." So all that time ago at the festival, the Native American had picked the Othello rune from me, had put it under that cabin. Out of all the places in America, it's one that drove me, and I ended up being there. And I actually I taught the runes to the South Nemea Indians. I learnt the language, the patois of the Chinook Indians, and I was on that land for a year. And after that, I came back to England, and then I realised that in a town like Glastonbury, which is a pantomime, 80% of the people are complete charlatans. And then I started having faith that I might be a medicine man. But I can only be a medicine man if I live in authenticity and do exactly what spirit does. And if I don't, it can be taken away as quick as it came.
Mm.
That's how I became a shaman and found the runes.
Thank you, Jeremy. What a powerful story, and yeah, I always love hearing it again. So I want to talk about land connection, land guardianship. A lot of the spirituality today, even if people sometimes pray for the earth and things like that, but there is not always a deep connection to land. There is not always a deep connection to the ancestors and the voices in that land. And I know you're a land guardian, and I know I've seen you working with land spirits. Can you tell us a little bit about what it means for you to be a land guardian? I mean, is it even the term you use, or what's your connection to land, and what is that? Why is that so important also on your path?
So since 2010, most of my time has been spent in Glastonbury, England, which is a hub of energy from where ley lines converge from all around the world. You can be called to the path of land guardianship and ignore it, or you can do it and be on the land every day. And the most important medicine you do is the energy on the land is correct. Now, I've met people who come to me in Glastonbury and say, I'm here, the second reincarnation of Jesus. I'm here to do this. I'm here to do that. And I tell them that the only thing that really matters is the land. The land was here before, it will be after. We're like ants passing past an oak tree. The land doesn't care if we live or die. We just go back to the earth. We come from the earth. The only thing we can do is be in service of the land, the ancestors, and the gods at the time we have. And when we get that balance and we feel completely in service of the land, it's bigger than making money. It's bigger than telling stories. It's you're at one. There's a Norse tradition called Uta-City, to sit outside in the forest and be one with the forest. And you sit so still that the animals, the plants, the trees, the rocks just accept you as part of it, because we are part of it. And for me, land guardianship is to go onto the land and feel the energy. And if it's wrong, to try and change it, to balance it and do everything you can. So Glastonbury Tour has a labyrinth around it. And I was on the land about 3 days ago, and I don't walk the labyrinth. It's a very feminine thing to do. The goddesses do it. But I was called to a certain part of the labyrinth, and I knew it had been blocked. The energy wasn't cleared. It was overgrown with brambles and nettles, and it had to be cleared. And as I was going, I was getting scratched and cut, and it was hard work. And as soon as I cleared that energy, you could just feel a whoosh. It was blocked. And if you're a land guardian, you must know when the land is suffering, when right relationship is not kept, when there's a blockage of energy. Just like we get sick, the land gets sick and it has to be healed. We use the energy of the land to heal us and others, and we should use the energy of us to heal the land. Holy places like stone circles, it's a symbiotic relationship between a certain place that those people have been called to put those stones there. And then for generations, we come and we pray and we give our intent and we make it holy. The standing stones aren't sacred because they're standing stones. The standing stones are sacred because they're part of the earth, and we hold them in reverence and we stand with our energy and make that place holy. And land guardianship to me is the same as when I do a reading with the runes. I put my hands on the stones and I do the chant of Manaz. It makes that ceremony sacred. And what we should do when we're in the forest is take that moment just to let the forest know that we hold it in complete sovereignty and in reverence. And we take that moment of breath and give thanks before we enter, and give thanks when we leave. And if we feel something's wrong, we do the best we can in our ability to change it. You see people going to the forest and throwing trash and stuff out. That's because they don't know any better. But if we're a land guardian, our job is to pick that trash up. You can't call yourself a shaman of the land and walk past seeing litter on the ground. It's our response. So one day a week in Glastonbury, I walk around with a trash bag and I'm picking up litter. And people, oh, look at that bloke, he must be beneath me, he's picking up litter. But isn't that being a good land guardian? Keeping everything in balance? So to me, the land guardian part of it is the most important. And I believe you don't have to own the land to be its guardian. You just have to have a relationship with the energy of that place. And also, it can come and go. I'm dealing with some people in Glastonbury who've been there for 20 years and they want to sell their shop. And they've put this medicine on that only the right people buy the shop and take it on. And I read the runes from, I said, listen, that's between the next people who come and the land. That's nothing to do with you. You can't sell your property because you've put this attachment on it. You have to set the land free for the land to choose who it wants as the next guardian. It's not your decision. It's not kingship. You are in service of the land. And whoever comes next is between them and the land. You just say, oh, thank you for the time I was here. I was honored to be your servant. May whoever comes next be as proud as I am to have been in service to you. And you step free.
Thank you for that. So do you feel like, I know now you're, moving around a little bit more. So how do you find this land? Do you just go, you have a feeling you need to go there one day? And how do you build relationship? I would say, depth of relationship with land if you are moving around a lot, if you are not really.
I'm in Glastonbury 3 days a week. And my oath is for the 3 days I'm in Glastonbury, every one of those 3 days, I will spend at least 3 hours on the land between me and the land myself, doing what I need to do. When I visit other places, I will do my ceremony. I will always leave offerings. I've just been to it's called the Cern Abyss Chalk Giant. It's a massive stone chalk building of a man with a club and a giant penis. And I've just taken a video there, and I stopped, and these people look around, and I sat back, and I just went into prayer, and Julie was filming me, and I didn't even realize that at the point when I was evoking the energy, because he's a fertility god, he is Conanas, the lord of the forest with the horns. At a certain part, I called his name. There was a flash of light on the video at the pinnacle of his phallus. And Julie said, what's that? I said, that's evoking the energy for that life. That is the spark of life. That's the essence of it. Now, all the other people around, they're a distraction. I have to get into my zone. And some of the places I go, they don't like me, so I don't do anything. I'll still leave an offering, but I'm not welcome. And that takes me back to, I ever tell you the story of Goat Church?
No, but I remember you telling me that, and there's something I learned from you, in fact, that to be really mindful about the land we enter and to make sure we have permission, and that's a thing I've seen in Peru too, with my teacher over there too, right?
Yeah, and both our cultures, the English and the French, especially in North America, just went land and wanted to claim ownership straight away, and just claiming ownership over whether the land wanted you to or not. So those are energies that guys like me and you are trying to put right by speaking to the land, by communicating with the land. In England, in a very short distance of spaces, you can change the energy, can change drastically. So you can be in Glastonbury tour, and then you can go 20 miles to Weston-super-Mare, bring down the islands of Wales, where there was lots of darkness, where the Golden Dawn and Aleister Crowley were. That's a very different energy. That's where I'm not welcome. It's not my thing. Then you go the other way to South Cadbury Castle, which is Camelot, where I took you. It's a very clean energy there, but nobody goes there. All of these energies exist. Glastonbury isn't one place and Sedona isn't another. They're all Mother Earth. And we have to listen. But just because we're all children of Mother Earth doesn't mean to say that you can turn up and you're welcome. And the world I come from, I sense that. It's my sixth sense to know when I'm welcome, when somebody might be trouble, when there's dark energy there. I can feel those things. Whether I was in the world of the casinos and the criminal world or in spiritual world, it's the same thing, to be able to recognize it. And I never go against that. If the land doesn't want me there, I'll just want to give my thanks and I'll move on. It's not for me. There must be somebody else. But when you find the places you're welcome, it's completely different.
Yeah, I feel that. I agree. So, I want to talk about, and maybe we could look at the runes and ask the rune about it, but I want to, ask you about this time we're in, right? It's very chaotic. There's a lot of divisions, a lot of fire energy, a lot of destruction. There's also, I guess some awakening and transformation that happens through that. But it feels like we are in for a very complex time, and that goes for everyone, and especially people deep on the path, right? Because we have to be in the midst of it. So, what's your vision around that, or what's your, how do you feel about this time we're in? Grandmother Strickrow, she told me, the other day, say we're in time of prophecy. We have a story for that. This is a known time, but it's going to be very complex and difficult for many of us, for human beings, for humanity, right?
Do you know what a neutrino is?
Yeah, neutrino, yeah.
Okay, so these are At times like this, I look at the quantum physics, because we are part of the Earth, we are part of the universe. There's no difference, but we separate ourselves from it. And there are cycles of 80 years where these certain neutrinos pass around the Earth and certain events happen. And if we take the end of World War II as the beginning of the modern cycle, we had the building years from 45 to 65, the golden years from 65 to 85, and anyone who grew up in that period knows that that was the golden years. Then we have the unraveling from 85 to 2005, and then we have the chaos from 2005 to 2025 that will lead us into the building period again. So some event is going to happen between now and the end of 2025. Now, because I'm a historian, I looked at this record, because neutrinos are science, it's quantum physics, they exist. And I looked at this 80-year cycle. If you go back 80 years from 1945, it takes you to 1865, the American Civil War, the assassination of Lincoln, the building years. Then you have the golden years of America, which was 85 to 2000, 1885 to 1905 was the golden years of the building of America. And you go back again, and you go back again, and it's just 80-year cycles. And then I realized, what is 80 years? 80 years is the average human lifespan. So we're just experiencing a time that we've never known before. And only the people who were born, who are older than 80, who went through the war, know what we're coming into. Mm. My parents were in the bombings of London, the Blitz. They were children. They're both gone now, but they experienced that chaos. We are coming to a head now. So what's going to happen is just part of the human experience. It is at this time where I think the shamans are supposed to just be still, because we need it afterwards. We can't react to what's going on because it is so chaotic. It's only when the dust clears and settles, we are there to reclaim ground, to rebalance the earth, to put things back in harmony. But this chaos, is it to do with us? Is it to do with the planet? Is it to do with the universe? That we are not in control of. We are just part of that ecosystem. And I see all the things, and if you look at the fall of the Roman Empire, the fall of the French Empire, Marie Antoinette, the fall of the British Empire, all these same events happened where the rich got richer, they got more bizarre, they got more outlandish. It's called the times of absurdity. We're in the times of absurdity. A prime example of that now is your P. Diddy's parties, the Epstein diaries, where the average person just wants to pay their bills and it's becoming impossible. The people who are supposed to be our guardians and watching over us are becoming more and more depraved, and all of a sudden their darkness is revealed and it all comes tumbling down. It needs to come tumbling down. Mm. But us as wise ones, we sit and we hold until we're needed. Mm. And it's, I believe we were born for these times. Now, 2012 was a great time and we're all booming, but this is the time we were born for.
Hmm. So how do you personally hold that space? You feel you just spend more time on the land? Do you spend more time with the medicine? Do you connect more with certain gods? Do you feel that there are things that really help, to go through that chaos?
For me, as a wisdom keeper, I go deeper and deeper into my land medicine, but also the ancient stories, the ancient texts. I'm heavily involved with researching the work of Chrétien de Troyes, Hildegard of Bingen. These were the mystics of the 12th century, when we have what you call the Northern Crusade, where all pagans who didn't believe in the light of Christ were murdered. This is another time of chaos. But a lot of riddles and mysteries were written down there and hidden in the stories. And we live in a time where the average 15-year-old has all the knowledge in the world in the palm of their hand. But it comes with no wisdom, no experience. So my belief is, as a shaman, we have to hold those stories, go deep into them, memorize them, and be able to tell them. Because after what's going on here, who knows, the internet may not exist anymore. Mm-hmm. The more we have the internet, the less there are written books. But if the internet can be wiped out by an electromagnetic pulse, mm-hmm. Who holds the stories? It's guys like me and you. hold the medicine of the land, the stories of the ancestors. Just like in the indigenous tribes of America and the indigenous Celts, it is the wisdom keepers who have no books, they just hold the memories. And the answers are in the memories.
So is there, from the Norse tradition, is there, or, maybe another tradition, right? Is there a story or a myth at the moment that you would like to share, something that really is good wisdom for this time? Is there one story that comes to mind, or maybe
The story
one character, right?
Yeah, been coming up a lot. So Odin's last wife. So Odin is the god of the Norse. He's the one-eyed father. He's hung on a tree for 9 days to find the runes, and the runes he found were the wisdom to understand the universe. But he didn't understand them because he wasn't a woman. These are the things of women. So he went to the goddess Freya, the queen of witchcraft, and he said, "Do you know what these are?" She said, "Of course I do. I'm a woman. It's called women's intuition." And he said, "Will you teach me?" And she said, "Yes, I will, as long as you live and dress as a woman for 1 year. Then you will understand what it's like to be sovereign over all your people." So Odin found these runes, but within the runes, there are lots of things that are hidden. Do you remember the story of Tyr and his one arm? So the gods are terrified of a thing called Ragnarok, the end of times. That is what we are in, And there's an old hag called Golveg Hoda, and she is burned 3 times, survived 3 times, and she tells them the future. And that within that burn 3 times, survives 3 times, are they the 3 aspects of the maid, the mother, the crone, the divine feminine? We don't know, but she tells these stories. Then Odin marries his last wife. His last wife is called Saga, because she remembers the stories. And as the world is fading, she tells Odin all the stories that he's forgotten. And I believe that's part of our path, to be the saga. But anyway, the son Tyr, Loki has these children in Jotunheim, and Thor and Tyr. Thor is the thunder god, Tyr is the god of the victory and truth, are sent to find these 3 children. They find Loki's children, they bring them back to Asgard. One is Jormungand, the Midgard serpent that Odin throws into the sea. The other is the girl Hela, who's half beautiful woman, half corpse, and he gives her the realm called Helheim, where the dead live. And the other one is a wolf called Fenrir, who will harbinge the end of times. And Odin looks at him and says, "We must dispatch that wolf, because in the end he will devour us." And Tyr has become attached to this puppy and says, "No, father, I will look after the puppy, I promise." And Odin says, "We cannot trust him. He will be the doom of us. He will be the doom of the gods." So Tyr said, "Well, we'll chain him. If we can chain him, we'll be okay." So every time they chain the wolf, he gets bigger and stronger and snaps the chains easily. And it goes on and on until Odin says he must be dispatched. So Tyr goes to the Dark Elves, the goblins and dwarves that live in the caves that make the magical weapons. And Tyr asked the dwarves to make a magical thread that would hold the wolf. And they came up with this silver, silky ribbon called Glipnir. And they showed it to the wolf, and the wolf thought, "That isn't a chain, that feels like magic." And Tyr said, "If we put it round you, I will put my fist in your mouth, and if it's a trap, you can bite my arm off." So the wolf trusted him, and the wolf asked, "What's that ribbon made of?" And the dwarf said, "It's made of the sound a cat makes when it hunts. It's made of the breath of a fish. It's made of the spit of a bird. It's made of the roots of a mountain. It's made of the sinews of a bear, and it's made of the beard of a woman." And the wolf laughs. Then every time he stretches, the thread gets tighter and tighter and tighter, till eventually he's bound, and he looks Tyr, and he rips his arm off. And he says to Tyr, "Why would you do that?" He said, "Firstly, I love you, I didn't want you dispatched, and secondly, it's worth losing my arm to protect my people." Now in that story, we're trying to harness the doom of the world. Now this magical thread, Glipnir, is a riddle. It's made of nonsensical things. But each one of those nonsensical things is an important part to your medicine path. So if you're going to do medicine, what is the sound a cat makes when it hunts? Silence. You don't tell anybody. You keep it between you and the land. And you use the breath of the fish. What is the breath of a fish? The fish allows the river to flow through it. So you allow the medicine to flow through you without any ownership. the spit of a bird. A bird uses spit to build its nest like a glue. If you can't stick at the medicine, don't start it. Then the roots of a mountain. You must be grounded. The sinews of a bear. Are you strong enough? And finally, the beard of a woman. When does a woman get a beard? In menopause, when she becomes wise. Is what you're doing wise? So at this time, the most powerful medicine is silent, is in the flow, is one that will stick. If people who are grounded, and the ones who are doing it are strong. But more important than anything else, it is wise what we're doing. So it's what I teach my students to double check what they're doing. And it's in these stories, great medicine. So I had a client the other day who came to me, and I was walking on the land, and now she's one of my shamanic clients, and she's been 8 years ago, her parents died within a week of one another. And from that point, she's been attacked by these 3 women in the night. And they keep attacking her, and they keep attacking her, and they keep trying. And she said, "What are you doing?" She said, we're upgrading you. She said, "But it feels so painful." And they keep continuously saying a nursery rhyme to me. And I can't get it out of my head. And I said, "What's the nursery rhyme?" And the nursery rhyme is, "Sing a song of sixpence, a pocket full of rye, 24 blackbirds baked in a pie. When the pie was open, the birds began to sing. Wasn't that a dainty dish to set before the king?" And it's over and over again. She said, "I don't understand it." I said, "Well, firstly, I'm just looking at mythology. The 3 women that are rebuilding you are Verdandi and Skull. They're the Norns, the weavers of the web. They weave the fabric of existence." She went, "Oh my God, I can always see them sewing and weaving." I said, "There you go." And I said, "You need to learn the runes." And she said, "Why?" I said, "What do you think 24 blackbirds baked in a pie are?" The 24 runes, the medicine of the raven. And once again, all our medicine is hidden in the nursery rhymes. Have you heard that rhyme before?
No, I didn't. No, it's beautiful.
It's an old English one.
Yeah. Thank you, Jeremy. I love the stories. And, to me, it's so amazing when we start realizing that there's what we call myth or old stories are in fact encoded medicine, right? Wisdom that is passed down so we could remember it and we could have it available when everything maybe goes down, when everything gets buried. It's still the stories.
You still got the stories there. And how many people remember to tell stories nowadays? I was greatly disappointed with the film The Green Knight. Because the story of Gawain and Green Knight, some of the Arthurian, and each of the Arthurian legends, even though I work with the runes and I work with the Ogham, I am fascinated by deciphering the riddles within the romances, the Grail stories, which are predominantly from French culture. But the royal family in Britain was French. We spoke French. The aristocrats wrote French. But in all that time between the 11th and 13th century, there were great mystics like Hildegard of Bingen. Eleanor of Aquitaine is another great mystic. She was so advanced of her time, and I think that she and Hildegard had something to do with writing the Grail stories. Now, within the Grail stories, I teach the Grail initiation, and this came up because of COVID. I went deep into I was just told to start looking deep into the romances, and my students say, "Why is it only the fool that gets the Grail? Why is it only Percival that gets the Grail and doesn't know what it is, so gives it back?" Because the Grail is different to each of the people. So I asked them, "What is the Grail to Arthur?" And they say, "What's the blood of..." No. The Grail to Arthur is to know that he and the land are one. He is the land guardian of the sacred isle. What is the Grail to Lancelot? To find a king worthy to follow, a man he would die in battle for, because he's the greatest knight and never found a king to follow until he meets Arthur. Then we have Guinevere, and in the original stories, Lancelot and Guinevere were lovers as children. Then she's forced to marry Arthur for a political marriage, and then her finding Lancelot and being in love with him is true love, not Arthur. She loved him first, so her Grail is to follow true love. Then you have Merlin. He's the wisest of all the wizards. What's his Grail? Well, he found love from Morgana, and she beguiled him and stole all his wisdom and left him trapped in an oak tree. because love doesn't have to be two-sided.
Mm.
Each of them have their own ground. Each story is independently written. We just get fixated with the cup of Christ and the spear of destiny. But each of us has our own path.
Mm.
For you and I, knowing that we in the land are one, that is the Arthur's Grail.
Mm.
We are the land protectors, and if we are well and in harmony, then the land is in harmony.
Mm.
So I tell them not to get fixated. And each one of these characters in this story are archetypes that we will pass through in our life.
Mm.
That story, which was written firstly in the 1150s, but was written again by Thomas Mallory in the 14th century, is a story that united the Celtic tribes with the Druid wizard. It united the Christians with Arthur, the Christian king. The sword in the stone is Odin at the battle of the wedding of the Volsungs, putting the sword Graham in the tree called Brimstock. That's a sword in the stone. So the Saxons were happy. And then the Knights of the Round Table were the Normans. So this was a story that was told at court and told in pubs that united not just one, but many kingdoms, because everybody had a part of it. We need that story again in this time that unites us instead of dividing us. So in America, you are a completely divided nation. We are in Britain as well. We are in Europe. But we need to be the ones to tell that story that brings us all together again. And it did. That story did unite a kingdom. And it has been so powerful, not just in Britain, but right across the world ever since.
Mm. Beautiful. Thank you, Jeremy. So you teach, you have students. I would love for you to tell us before, we go here, like you have some amazing offering, and I'm not saying that I'm not getting paid for that. I said that with all my heart. You are blessed if you can study under Jeremy. I'm still considering returning to his class, in fact, or retaking the class, because it's been many years I've taken a proper class with him, and I want to return to that. But tell us a little bit about your offerings and how people, what you're offering at the moment. We put the link, so if you're watching the video, you can see under this video. If you're on my podcast right now, please read under the podcast with all the links. But Jeremy, tell us about your offering.
So on the 16th of November, I'm doing what I call the learning the runes. I'm going to teach you the runes, 4 runes at a time over 6 classes. I teach the runes using vision. So I bang and take you on my drum and take you on a journey, and you'll experience each rune within a vision. Then after the 6th class, you'll be working with 24 runes and understanding how to work with them, to read with them, and to how rebalance the energy, because that's the difference with the runes. I don't take anybody else further on the path. Bulldog, shush, Betty. Unless
Dog agrees with that.
She said, "Oh, you're telling me I'm going on." Unless they've learned the runes, so you can't do the shamanic path for me unless you understand the runes. And also, I'm going to be doing an initiation of the Grail again, probably in the new year, because I've had requests for that, which is completely different. The initiation of the Grail is where we get. There's a book called the Elucidacian. This is the first book that was written by Chrétien de Troyes, and we also feature. There's a book called The Illuminations by Hildegard of Bingen. Once again, these books were written in the 11th century, 12th century, 1150s. So if that aspect of the mysteries appeals to you, I go deep into the stories of that, telling the stories of the romances, but also taking you on a vision quest with each one. And just recently, because of what's been happening with me, I come from a dark world. There are 9 worlds. There's one particular one that I don't visit very often, which is called Los Alfheim, the Light Elves. It's the home of the angels, the light being, the cosmic beings, ascended masters. It's a world where I've never felt worthy of being, because I'm a bit of come from a grubby background where they're all white and shiny, and I really have nothing in common, and leave me with the trolls in the cave. But I've been called to that path, to wake up to that path and put it in balance. And Kelly, my business partner, she is a cosmic shaman, so she works with the threads of the universe, with the cosmic beings, and we are putting together. Do you know what Lyrians are, Angel?
Mm-hmm.
So they have come to me a couple of times, and I've always been very wary of them, but they have come again and told me they want to initiate me. So I'm going to use my initiation into this path and what that's about by mixing the towers of the ancients, the towers of the land, with this new energy to me of the light elves. and to see where it develops. And it will be an initiation course. We haven't put that finally down yet, but it's only come in the last week, and I said, okay, I've got to do this now. But the next thing that's coming up is on the 16th of November is learning to read the runes with me.
Powerful. Thank you, Jeremy. So please, go on Jeremy's website, register to his newsletter so you can get the news on his new class, and also check out this initiation of runes. That's how I started with you, Jeremy. 10 years ago, I took my first class with you, and then went down the rabbit hole with the initiation and everything.
Yeah, once you open that door, it's hard to close it. And I know you're saying about doing the class again. I've got several of my clients who have come back and learnt the runes again, because the first time they learnt them, they were a novice in the magical world, and they got so much out of it the second time around. And in the current class I've got running, I've got an experienced student, and they're saying it's changed so much.
Yeah.
Now I have the ability to do deeper.
For me, they always guide me so well. In fact, when my wife Rose, that and that was one of your students, and I, when we have really deep questions and things that trouble us, we turn to the rune, because we always get the straight answer. Either we like it or not, but we get the straight answer, right?
It will show you the uncomfortable truth.
Yeah, it's just what it is. But I have them tattooed on my hands and my bodies, and I work with them. I can't escape them in so many ways. So thank you so much, Jeremy. Thank you for sharing your beautiful stories, and really encourage everyone to check Jeremy's work. If you're in Glastonbury, also go visit. Thank you. Blessings to everyone. And Jeremy, it was such a pleasure to be with you today.
Welcome, brother, and blessings to all your clients who take the time to listen. May the gods be with you all. Bye-bye.